Hello and welcome to today's Tidings. I'm your host, Joyce Tumia. I have two very interesting guests with me today. I have Tina Marie Kubica and I have Patrick Kevin Feeney. And one of the things we're going to talk about is Reiki, and then we're going to talk about some related topics like psychic abilities and mediumship and whatever else comes up. So we'll start with the Reiki though, and Patrick, I understand, well, you know what, I like to let my guests start by sharing some background information on themselves, whatever you like. So what would you like to share?
Well, that I'm just a Reiki teacher, amongst other things.
Right.
And we also hold classes in A Course in Miracles, and we do meditation classes also.
Okay, wonderful. And Reiki, people might know, is a kind of energy work. But we'll define that in a minute, just for anybody who might not know. Okay,
Yeah.
Tina, what would you like to share about yourself?
I actually found Reiki because I was really sick, and I was spending a lot of time in the hospital, so I went to Reiki, which is, of course, the natural healing with the universe and white light and stuff. And I actually got better. They thought I had lupus. Turned out I didn't. No more hospitalizations or anything after the Reiki stuff.
Wonderful. Okay, that's great. All right, well, let's talk about Reiki, and you were starting to define it there.
Yeah, we'll leave that for Patrick.
Okay, Patrick.
And then I'll tell them what's the right and what's wrong, how it goes.
Definitely a good team, okay.
Yeah, we come from opposite angles.
Okay.
So, and that's why we like to teach together, teach our classes together, because the students get it from both sides. So we pretty much cover everything with it.
Okay, and Reiki was discovered, developed by?
Reiki was, let's say, founded.
Okay, founded.
By Mikao Usui.
Okay, right.
Right in the beginning of the 1800s.
Okay.
And he went on a vision quest, and this form of healing came to him.
Okay.
And so he went back into the town and started sharing it with everybody. And he shared it with he taught it to a few different people. And one of the ones he taught it to kind of took over for him. And he was the one who built the hospitals and the schools. And then it got passed on to like one of the first females to do that, and that was Takata, Hawaii Takata.
Okay.
And she was actually from Hawaii. She was a American Japanese.
Okay.
And she had brought it to the rest of the world. She took it out of Japan and brought it everywhere else.
Okay, and it has spread and it is worldwide.
Yeah, it is worldwide now, and it's an amazing thing. It's like a touchless massage. Yeah.
I know there are particular signs that you make and movements, and one is not allowed to share those unless it is within the context of a class.
Right, with an attunement.
Right.
It's what they're called. And those are, it's their way of keeping it sacred and to make sure that people just aren't abusing it, because it really can be, we all have energy healing in us, and we can do it. The attunements just amplify it a lot. So you can feel it when you get in there, and it depends on what the person wants. You know, it affects the mind, body, and spirit, because it believes that every physical element has a mental and a soul element to it. So you have to heal all three of them to get it. So it works really good with people that are seeing doctors on a regular basis, because a physician can do the physical, and then we can cover the other part, and it really helps.
Okay, and so it isn't something in place of doctors. I mean, someone could try
never in
that,
place.
but it's complementary.
Yes, it's complementary.
Okay, as a lot of what we would call non-traditional medical practices are. They're complementary. They're not necessarily meant to replace something. They might, depending on what it is. I mean, if somebody has a common cold, that's not going to be as serious as somebody who has cancer, for instance.
Correct.
You might manage with just that. Okay. And somebody might argue that it's all in the person's head. I don't know that that's true, but on the other hand, if in some cases someone is experiencing it and is very skeptical, but still believes that they are curing themselves or can cure themselves, then it certainly doesn't hurt.
Well, the mind is a powerful thing. I firmly believe state of mind. I mean, it's a very powerful thing. We just both had experienced amazing experiences with it, so we firmly believe in it. Patrick himself had a really amazing healing, which led him to it.
And I mean, other than that, that's too long a story.
Okay.
Other than that, I'd gotten food poisoning, and within less than a minute, it was completely gone, just by using the Reiki.
So you did the Reiki on yourself? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
it's
it
good
can
for
be-
people to know that they can do it on themselves instead of having to wait to make an appointment somewhere or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you've learned how to do it, the Reiki One Attunement, it's an energy flow, and it's all about healing yourself, healing things that happened to you from childhood that may still affect you, early adulthood, whatever. Things that may still be affecting you on a level you don't realize it. It helps with all that stuff. It's been known to be able to stop a bleeding wound if the hand is over it, till people could get to a hospital if they needed to. It's I personally used it to help birth my grandson because he wouldn't come out in the hospital. I went ahead and did the Reiki, and he shot right out.
Wow.
So it's used in a lot of ways. Cancer patients use it. It eases the nausea and stuff from after their medication.
And even on your medications, it kind of like amplifies their potency.
Their positive effect,
Yes.
and kind of helps flush out the negative effects of it.
Okay. In fact, there's a center in Hinsdale. You may know the specific name of it, like a wellness center, and it's where there's a lot of education and support for cancer people with cancer. Excuse me. And I believe that I have read that they've added practices like meditation and so on to the healing, that they aren't just going by chemotherapy and things like that. So that's helpful.
Happening a lot more now. Yeah.
Yeah. Some hospitals even teach Reiki. Their
Really?
nurses have Reiki classes there, and they learn to do it.
I would call that very progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very good for people. I've seen amazing things. I had a client that was an older gentleman, and his granddaughter had asked me to do a Reiki on him, and he wasn't able to get out of bed, and they were just waiting for him to go. His memory was shot. I did an hour Reiki session on him. He actually had gotten up, moved around. His memory, he shared lots of memories with them. Was a very peaceful day. He did go to sleep that night and pass away in his sleep, but he didn't pass away painfully. It helped ease that pain, and it gave the family an amazing memory at the end. So, I mean, it could do things like that.
Okay, so two things then. If somebody wants to learn how to do it, how do they find you two or other people who can teach it? And if somebody doesn't necessarily want to learn how to do it him or herself, but wants to have a session, is it something where you can just open the Yellow Pages?
Well, we would always encourage somebody just to have a session first, just so they know what it's like.
Okay.
No, I don't think you'll find Reiki teachers in the Yellow Book yet. But,
Online, maybe.
Online, yes.
That would be more progressive.
Yeah. And, just follow your intuition. Yeah, there's going to be some good teachers and some bad teachers. That's with everything. Just follow your intuition.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
like
some
I
people
said-
are better at that than others. But
Yeah, a lot of hospitals do it. You can search it online. We have some information on our website, which is tinamariemedium11.com.
Okay.
They can go
And we can
there
put
and
that
find
in the
out some
credits.
things. It's all over the internet. A lot of hospitals you can call, and they will tell you stuff about it. A lot of hospice places use it now.
Okay.
I believe there's a university in Chicago now that is the University of Reiki. So they teach it.
Okay.
So it's really easy to find if you want a Reiki treatment.
Okay. And is there anything we haven't covered concerning the Reiki that we should mention before we go on to anything else? I mean, it's a method of energy work for healing. It can heal on the different levels. It isn't necessarily meant to replace traditional medicine, but as a complement to it. People can do it to themselves, or they can go for sessions.
It's very, like I said, and it's not just physical. It can help mental stuff. Like mental abuse and
Emotionally.
stuff from
Okay.
younger. The other thing is, it's not so much us as it is the energy that is, we're considered a vessel.
Okay.
So the energy comes through us from a higher power.
Okay.
And because we're open to it and pure of heart, we allow them to use our body as what's called a vessel.
Okay.
And that's where the energy comes from. So it's not us particularly. And it can't harm. It's not a religion, and it can't harm, which is really what people need to realize.
Okay. So that sums it up pretty well. Okay. It sounds wonderful, and I am myself somewhat familiar with it, but obviously there are a lot more people who also are familiar with it, but I'm sure there are still some who aren't. So good for them to know.
Yes.
Okay, so, and if any other questions come up, we'll just circle back to that.
Okay.
Meantime, there are some other interesting things we can talk about.
Well, Patrick runs a meditation class and a Course of Miracles study group.
Okay, do you want to talk briefly about it? I think people know what meditation is now. There are different ways and different kinds of breathing involved in it, and again, it's, go ahead.
Yeah, there's just numerous ways to meditate. The reason we do it is you want to open a pathway. And the more times you open it, it's like walking through a jungle and you got to clear out the forest. You go back there the next week, it's all overgrown again, so you got to clear it out again. But after a few months of continually doing that, the path finally clears out. And that's all we do with the meditations is we're just trying to quiet the mind. And the more times you do that, the easier it gets.
Okay. And I've heard meditation, I've heard that prayer is talking to God or a higher source or however one wants to phrase it, and that meditation is listening to God or, again, higher source, however one wants to phrase it.
Yeah, you can meditate on a question, like you can do your prayer if that's what somebody does, and then quiet the mind to get the answer, because we will be imprinted with the answer.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just about, sometimes if you're just running crazy and life just seems to be swirling around you, you can take 5 minutes to meditate. It doesn't take hours, but you could start with like 5 minutes and calm yourself down and clear your mind, and it helps. My children used it for tests. They would take deep breaths, spend like a minute or two to collect themselves, and then it was easier to take the test when they did test at school.
So in a sense, it's a form of stress release as well.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And stress is the reason, or I shouldn't say stress itself, because really we all have stress. It's how we deal with it. So not dealing with it well, allowing it to adversely affect us, is what causes disease or dis-ease.
Correct.
Which is very interesting. So everyone needs to learn relaxation techniques and how
Something
to
that
deal with stress.
Yes, and something that works for them. And some people, I mean, Patrick can meditate for hours. I can't. My mind stays very busy, and I'm a mom, so who has time to meditate for hours? So I'll spend 5 minutes, just bringing myself together, and then things are clear. It makes it easier to move forward.
I'm glad that you pointed out that you can meditate on something, because I think another misconception is that meditation means like totally clearing your mind and not thinking about anything. But I've read and heard that if a thought comes into your mind, you can recognize the thought and then let it go again and not focus on it and try to have the open mind, but that you also can meditate on something in particular, or you can use something like a beautiful flower as a focus point.
Right.
And then there are labyrinths. And a labyrinth is not a maze. A maze is the dead ends that you get lost, but the two words are occasionally used interchangeably, and I think Greek mythology has the labyrinth with a minotaur as the maze that you get lost in. But today we call a labyrinth particular pattern, usually walking, although they're finger ones, and it's like a walking meditation. And there are different circuit ones, 5 circuit and 7 circuit or whatever it is.
Yes, and what you're doing on that is you're concentrating on where you're going, which clears your mind, and you get answers. You're just recognizing the beauty in the footprint in front of you instead of worrying about everything else around you. And that's all that meditation really is to be in the moment.
If you focus on one thing, that's getting rid of all the other things. So it's at least instead of 10,000, you're thinking of one.
Right.
And that like opens you up.
Right.
But you can grocery shop and meditate in grocery shopping or washing dishes.
Sweeping the floor, boy.
Brushing your teeth.
Yes, yes. Things that
I
you do
always get
habitually
lost.
where your mind doesn't have to be engaged.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And everybody does it. They don't realize it. One thing that's pointed out a lot for meditation is when somebody gets lost in a TV show and they don't hear anything around them, they're actually in a meditated mode because they're concentrating on what they're looking at.
So it's akin to daydreaming.
Yes.
A little bit. Okay.
And that's what the commercial guys know.
Okay. So they're using that state to plant suggestions. Okay. Well,
you ever notice you want to buy something that's been on a commercial when you're more into the TV show than when you're not?
Or the number of times you're exposed to it. That's
Yes.
true too. They talk about 7 touches. It's true. I can start out looking at a particular style of something and say, that's not my taste. I don't really like it. By the time I've seen it over and over and over again, I'm familiar with it. It seems comfortable, and it's like, oh yeah, I like that because it's familiar. It's so familiar. Right. And then I remind myself, wait a minute, when that first came out, I didn't like that at all. What's going on here? I don't know. Things are working.
But see, and it's got your brain working and you're thinking about things, which is really important to do because now you're understanding things better and how they work. And that's what meditation does. And it really does ease your life because instead of running into roadblocks and stuff like that, you're able to think ahead and think more clearly. And then you're able to go, oh, that wasn't my idea. That was somebody else's. What am I thinking? And move past it.
Okay. So these are both some different techniques for improving one's well-being, whether, on all levels. But if someone doesn't really know where to start or has a question or a pressing family issue or questions about a job or career or relationships or whatever it is, and they can meditate all they want, but they still they're not attuned to their intuition or whatever it is. They need help. They need outside help. And they don't want to just go to a doctor or a counselor. They may go to a medium or a psychic.
Yes, and I do have clients that come to me that for some reason they don't want to go to counselors and they need answers. And it's not so much answers as they just need someone to understand them. And that's where the mediumship comes into play. I can get in touch with their past loved ones, talk to them. I can get to what the heart of the matter is instead of having to break it down and try to figure out what's really bothering them sometimes. And then we don't have to discuss it. We find ways to deal with it. We bring it up. We release it. I firmly believe in going to a counselor, but sometimes an issue to repeat something over and over and over again, it's just, it gives it too much energy.
And it's counterproductive.
Yeah, and it is. It's very counterproductive. But if you could find a way, bring it up, release it, be done with it. And a lot of my clients, they're done with it. They seem to be able to move forward. And that is really, it's an amazing thing. Or to watch, someone that didn't get to say goodbye, just say goodbye, or to have a past loved one come in and give them a memory that they forgot about, or even to let them know that what they're feeling is them there. That is really, I find that so important. And with the other part too is if there's life questions and stuff, they can come in and I can talk to their past loved ones, plus I use the tarot cards. I can give them some answers. I never make the decision for them or tell them what to do. I give them options and I show them how they could come out. But the ultimate decision is theirs because it's free will. And I'm a firm believer in the free will.
Okay. And I think most people know what a medium is because it means that you're like the medium or the go-between someone who's passed on and someone who's still here. And there are a lot of skeptics out there, and then there are people who are open-minded, and then there are believers. I understand that you were on a radio show this morning. We won't name names, but you started out with someone who was very skeptical, and you gave that person some information, which then made that person a believer and was actually defending you from a caller who was being skeptical.
Yes.
So I'm more than open-minded. There are gullible people out there, and there are, just as in any profession, maybe some people who are not as conscientious as others and don't mean well. But I like to believe the best of people and believe that most people are sincere and able to do what they can and so on. And I think most other people are like that too. No guarantees, but I think
there's a lot out there that are not the best psychic and mediums out there. I mean, there's some out there that if they're trying to sell you something huge and get a lot of money out of you, you need to be careful.
That's a pretty big tip-off.
Yeah, you need to be very, very careful. If they're talking about somebody dying or death is coming, that you have to be very, very careful of, because I personally cannot predict death. I don't think anybody can, because again, it's a free will, and I believe that when we're ready to go, we go. So no one can really tell us when we're going to go, type of thing. There has been incidents where I have had clients and I've said, you need to be careful. I see something with a car, just be extra cautious. And they have avoided accidents. Doesn't mean the accident would have killed them or anything, because I don't have that type of power. But it does give them heads up on things, which is really good, I think.
And maybe if more people would themselves experience some kind of psychic have a psychic experience or recognize it as such. There are people who can have something hit them in the head and they're still not going to be open to it because they just don't want to believe they can see, white and still call it black, and there are just people like that. But we are supposed to all have psychic ability, but some of us know how to develop it more than others. And for some people, it might just be thinking about somebody and the phone ringing and having it be that person, and they just shrug it off as coincidence, but that can happen a lot. I've had things where I will wake up. I had a dream where a finger was cut off, and it was so real that I woke my husband up to assure me that my finger was still there. And then 2 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was one of my sisters calling to tell me that she'd had her finger cut off in an accident. And it was just, there have been a lot of things like that. And that wasn't, it's interesting because my sister wasn't in the dream, and yet there was some connection that had me dream that so vividly, obviously, because she was still my sister. But other things have been right on, and I'm not ready to hang up a shingle or anything, but it makes me more open to believing in the possibility.
Right, and that's your intuitiveness stepping in. And for me, it was a lot like that. And still today with my daughters, I get a little confused on whether it's them or me. So yeah, I do have that. Tapping into your own intuition is that, and when you have past loved ones that come through, you'll know they're around because you have a memory or a thought of them, or something of theirs will show up. They give us signs everywhere. People just think it's coincidence. Deja vu's if you have a lot of deja vu, you probably have a strong intuition. And people can develop it, but most people are afraid of it. Just like where you said you woke up out of your dream, scared your finger was cut off.
Right.
Their worst nightmares they think are going to happen, and that's not the case, because they can't tell the difference between dealing with emotional stuff and what is a premonition, basically.
Okay, I don't know if you remember your thought. You were going to say something, and I kept going.
If you chose to work on that and develop it, you could hang your shingle. It's if you want to go that far.
Well, I like the idea of helping people, and there are a lot of ways of helping people, and I think in this lifetime I'll be more of a writer and somebody else can be a doctor. I'll be more of a writer and somebody else can be the psychic and medium, but maybe in a future lifetime. Who knows?
What I was going to bring up, a lot of times people come to me for a Reiki session, and during which a lot of times I'll get messages to pass on to them.
Okay.
And it'll be about some trauma they're going through, or and so we'll be, after the session, we'll talk about it and go through everything. And it's, I don't get direct answers. It's a general thing. And so we're going back and forth trying to figure out what it's supposed to mean. And I just, you know what, why don't you just go see Tina? She'll just hook up with your guides and tell you directly. So there's no guesswork involved. So that's we work together as good as a team like that too.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, I get the answers. No, I'm just kidding. If there's something that they need to work on, sometimes a past loved one will come in and talk to me about it. If there's something that they need to figure out themselves, I'll get, like, do this, do that, watch for that, and they'll have to figure it out themselves. But like I said, everybody gets messages, whether it's on a license plate in front of you, you can open a newspaper and a word will jump out, a street sign. They're always trying to talk. They're always trying to give you messages. I think what makes your loved ones and your guides come through different from a medium is I can connect to everybody's family. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, anybody that wants to talk, because if they don't want to come through, they don't come through.
Okay.
But anybody can connect to their own family, I think.
Okay, and this is a topic we could really talk about a lot more. There was this show on television for several years called Medium, and there have been other shows exploring psychic phenomena and things like that, and it's all very interesting, and I hope people are at least being open-minded and considering it, and knowing that it's not good to be gullible, but it is good to be open-minded. So, and it can be very helpful, so it's worth looking into. So all of this sounds really interesting and, again, helpful. Helpful, I guess helpful is our key word here today.
Yes.
Helpful.
And I think the most important thing is in the process of recognizing your intuition, you find out who you really are as a person. And that's where everything begins, because if you don't know who you are or what your real needs are as an individual, it's too hard to move forward in life. You're second guessing everything.
Okay, well, that's a good note to end on then. Great advice. Always good to know who one is, whom one is, who one is. My English is corroding here. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this information. It's been very helpful. I wish you both well with your future endeavors in these areas. And thank you for watching. Please join us again for future episodes of Today's Tidings.